Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, sorry about that. Cole's like a first day intern over here sometimes.
Yeah, that's what happens when you take time away from my segment. It's karma.
Hey man, Coach Mayer was just going on talking about Italy. We couldn't stop him. We were having a great conversation there. So.
Oh well, all right.
we'll just take time from Tribble. No big deal.
All right. You can limit this week's fashion content to maybe 30 seconds.
There you go. What's going on up your way? Obviously, a big win by Lenape last night. Lenape-Cherokee. I know that was a game we were kind of anticipating for a while.
Yeah, it was a real. It turned out to be a really good game, and first half Lenape kind of dominated, and they were only up 10-0. Cherokee couldn't get anything going. They turned the ball over left and right, and but it was still 10-0. So Cherokee's, obviously they're still right in it, and they come out in the second half, and John Lovett, the Rutgers commit, who had fumbleitis in the first half, he came out like a man possessed in the second. He scores on a short run on their first series. They hold on the second. They get the ball back. He scores again. So now it's early in the fourth quarter, and now Cherokee's got all the momentum. Lenape's kind of silent. The fans have kind of come to a dull roar. And then, 3 plays later, Lenape quarterback Matt LaJoy, makes a check at the line, holds the ball, and boom, he's gone up the middle, and he's racing to the end zone. And now all of a sudden, momentum is completely flipped. And on the play, John Lovett's trying to track him down, and you can see Lovett reach out with his right hand to try to knock the ball away from behind. And LaJoy said afterwards that he saw a shadow. So just as Lovett's trying to strip him from behind, LaJoy makes just a slight of enough move to his left that Lovett misses him, and LaJoy goes 71 yards for a touchdown. And it turns Lenape holds on at the end with some tremendous defense, as they played all season. So, P.J. Megan from Cherokee told his kids after the game, we're not a great team. We're a good team, but we haven't beaten anybody yet. And that really said a lot. He's a very realistic coach. Cherokee's going to get some power points from last night, and I think they'll still be okay playoff-wise for 5, but they've got to clean up. They really have to clean things up if they want to make a move. And Lenape on the flip side, really tremendous defensive team as they've been all season long. And, they score points. They don't score a ton of points, but they score them when they have to, and there's a team that's 7-0.
Yeah, Phil Anastasia called it a pulse-pounding clash of school district rivals. That's a pretty poetic phrase there.
Yeah, it was the atmosphere was great. Both stands were packed. People were lined up along the fence. I think people just like to line up along the fence because it's kind of like the cool thing to do at this point in time. But the place was packed, like I said, and it was a crisp night. It was just perfect. It was really a perfect night for high school football in South Jersey, and what was on display last night, aside from Cherokee committing 6 turnovers, which P.J. Megan said he can't ever remember happening. It was a very entertaining game, pretty clean on both sides, and obviously a game that was going to come down to a couple plays.
Talking with Kevin Minnick of the Courier-Post. Kevin, a couple other big games up in the Camden County area. Camden Catholic with a nice comeback win over Holy Spirit, 28-22, and Cedar Creek with a 17-14 win over Haddonfield in a rematch of last year's South Jersey Group 2 semis. So some pretty impressive wins there by Cedar Creek and Camden Catholic.
Yeah, Catholic, has been playing extremely well. They stay undefeated, and I guess they kind of showed a little bit last night and faced some adversity. They haven't been behind in very many games this season, and Spirit has proven itself to be definitely a very, very solid football team this year. So that's a big win for them, and then at Cedar Creek as well on the road. Haddonfield's not an easy place to play. The fans pack the stadium, and the seating is only on one side of the place. So, very old school, very nostalgic, stadium to play in, and to come out of there with a W, is obviously a pretty big deal for Cedar Creek, and they should maintain. I'm going to guess they maintain their number one hold on the South Jersey Group 2 power points, by the end of the weekend.
Now, what's the deal with PowerPoints? Does next week's games count, or is it the first 8 games? That's what it is, right? The first 8 games. So whether you have 7 or 8 this week.
By the end of next week, every team will have at least 8 games in.
Gotcha.
And what it comes down to is it's not the top 8 games that count towards your PowerPoints. It's your best 7.
Oh, okay.
So, if you have a clunker in there somewhere, that about one loss where you may have only picked up 5 or 6 PowerPoints, throw it out the window because it won't count. So what they'll do is they'll add up the points, and then they'll go in and they'll take the one game that's the the least amount of PowerPoints generated.
Gotcha.
And throw that out of the equation, and then you'll get your top 8 teams.
So you get a mulligan.
In essence, you do. And some people will say that's fair, and that every team deserves maybe one break along the season. I don't know if I actually lean that way. If you want to be a champion and you want to play like a champion, you know what? If that one game cost you, well, then that one game cost you. You shouldn't catch a break. If you didn't play well one week, because playoffs should be about the best teams, and it shouldn't be about a team sliding in here and there. But for the most part, it works out pretty well.
Kevin, were you surprised at all at Highland's victory over Oakcrest? Oakcrest was coming off a bye, had been off to a really good start this year, and what do we know about Highland at this point?
Highland's a team that really their big running back Orlando Council has just come back last week, and I don't think he's really at 100% yet. But he was a dominating running back last year. He finished 3rd in South Jersey in rushing, and he's a top quality player. But I think Oakcrest is still, even though they're off to a tremendous start, I think without Kendall Elliott for the last couple of weeks probably hurt them a little bit. And he came back last night, but I don't know exactly how healthy he is. But just off the top of my head, I'm thinking that the kicking game may have hurt Oakcrest last night if it came down to that, because you look at the scores and you look at some conversions not being made, and Highland does what it needs to do to get a W. So they're off to their best start in probably 20 some years at this point. So I'm not surprised Highland won the game, but I think there's some things that both teams probably need to clean up a little bit come playoff time, because I think they're probably both going to be in there.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make about the kicking game, and some of the guys on our radio show last night, Friday Night Live, were talking about what a difference that can make, and you're seeing that with teams like Cedar Creek with Pat Moran. I mean, that's such a luxury to have a kid like that who you get to even the 30 or 25-yard line, you got a chance for a game-winning field goal. Not many teams can really say that they can have a kid that can knock home a 40, 45-yarder.
No, they can't. And the thing is, I think the kicking game, as far as it has come in the last maybe 10 years or so, there's still teams that don't put the effort into it. And, I'd say I would say clearly better than half the teams in South Jersey probably do not have a legitimate kicker that a coach can say, okay, we're looking at the ball's sitting at the 25. We got maybe a 37-yard field goal. They don't have the confidence in their guys, and that's a shame. And then there's other teams with kids that have obviously put in a lot of time. They go to practice and they're by themselves and they're practicing kicking, and they do it in the summertime and all the workouts. And these kids are just kicking footballs, and they're not really involved with everything else, but they're doing their job. And for some teams, it has clearly shown. Joe Dalsey at Shawnee's got 6 field goals now. I think 3 of them turned out to be the game-winning points. Kate Antonucci hits one at St. Joe to win a ball game. Pat Moran hits one to win a ball game. So, push comes to shove, when it gets to the playoff time, these games you shouldn't be expecting to see blowouts, and they could come down to a last kick. It could come down to a missed extra point. So, I know a few guys that are around here that are kicking disciples and know the importance of it, and I just wish more teams would take the time to develop a kicker instead of going for 2 every time, and then by the time the game's over, instead of 28 points, they have 24, and they lose 24, or they lose 28-24. So
right.
Kicking is a huge part of the game, and I just think that there's just a lot of teams out there that need to put a little bit more effort into it.
Kevin, who's the team you got your eye on this coming week as we get to the final week before the playoff cutoffs? And any bubble teams that really need a victory this coming week?
You threw the curve at me right there. I don't have everything in front of me, but I think if you go back and look at the PowerPoints, and there's some teams that are going to need a W. I think Washington Township sticks out first. They get a W over Bridgeton last night. They're going to need to beat. I think they're going to need to beat Kingsway on next week to get into Group 5. And all those teams that are rounding into 9, 10, 11 spots that are still right there, obviously, are the teams that are going to have to do what they're going to have to get a W next week. That's what this basically comes down to.
Well, I guess it comes down to does it come down to who you play in terms of their group size and their wins, residual points, all that stuff?
It'll all factor in.
Yeah.
Yes, it'll all factor in, and the bigger the team, if you're a 3 and you play a 5 and you get a W, that's even bigger for you. So, it all comes down to next week. I mean, there's no more fooling around. We separate the pretenders from the contenders and move on from there. So, there are plenty of teams out there that have been playing playoff games for the last 2 or 3 weeks. So they need to play one more and get a W.
Who's the big matchup on your radar for next week? I know for Mike McGarry in the press area, it's obviously Prep and Vineland, 2 undefeated teams going at it. Who's on your radar for next week?
Well, I like the Prep Vineland game. As well as Vineland's been playing, the Prep has just been outstanding, and you just can't deny what they've been doing all season long. So that game is huge down that area, but I think that the Prep obviously kind of goes into that game as a clear favorite to win that game. And you move up a little bit closer up our way in Camden County. I think the big game next week is going to be Camden Catholic and Cherry Hill West. Both teams are coming in at 7-0. It'll be for their division title. Both teams have been playing extremely well. Have some tremendous athletes on both sides of the ball. So that'll probably be the biggest game up this part of the southern area.
Nice. That should be a real good game.
Yeah, Camden Catholic's been playing extremely well. They showed some resiliency coming back to beat Spirit last night, and Cherry Hill West, they routed Sterling last night. I believe it was 55-6. But it's going to be a test for both teams, and Camden Catholic has its athletes. Nazir Streeter is one of the area's best running backs and defensive backs, and Cherry Hill West will throw. They've got some real nice talent, and then they're led by Harrison Hand, who is one of the nation's top recruits. And, he's solid whether he runs the ball out of the backfield a little bit in the slot, but he's a tremendous defensive player and probably the best DB in South Jersey right now.
Good stuff, Kevin. We'll let you go. We're up against the break here, but enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll catch up with you next week.
All right, Sully. Take it easy, man.
You got it. Thanks, man. That was Kevin Minnick of the Courier-Post.